As the Raiders prepare for Week 12 action versus the Cleveland Browns at Allegiant Stadium, they come into the game pretty healthy and getting some reinforcements to back them up. That plus more on Friday's edition of the Locked On Raiders podcast for November 21st, 2025.
You are Locked On Raiders, your daily Las Vegas Raiders podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And welcome in, Raider Nation, to another edition of the Locked On Raiders podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your number one sports podcast network. You know, we're very proud of that. We're also very proud of the way that this show continues to grow each and every day because of your support and the great job that my man Ari does behind the scenes, making sure we look good and sound good. So we shout him out. We appreciate him. He's on Twitter at Ari Produces. You can find me on Twitter as well at your boy Q254. And if you want to be a part of the show, as many of you do, we got the Locked On Raider podcast voicemail line for you at 707-654-4693. As we close out today's show, we'll hear from you. Calls, texts, a lot of great feedback we've been collecting all week long, and we'll definitely try to get as many calls and texts in as we close out the show and we close out the week. That'll be segment number 3. Segment number 2, I always talk about keys to victory. What is it going to take for the Raiders to come away with the dub? We'll do that in segment number 2, but really, what am I looking for? What am I focusing on the most in this matchup with the Cleveland Browns, knowing they have a new starting quarterback in Shedeur Sanders? So we'll put a little bit of a twist on what we normally do, but we'll do that in segment number 2. Here in segment number 1, news and notes of the day, as I always do. We'll jump into that after I tell you about the title sponsor of the show, which is Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, use promo code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. So, off top, I mentioned that the Raiders come into this one pretty healthy. Looking at their injury report from Wednesday and Thursday, Jonah Laulu dealing with the rib injury. He actually left Monday night's game with the Dallas Cowboys with that rib injury. He was limited on Wednesday and Thursday. Now, a new addition, matter of fact, a couple new additions for the Raiders on the injury report: Max Crosby, Lecky Fotu, and Dylan Parham. Crosby with the knee injury, not listed on Wednesday, limited on Thursday. I don't think it's too much to look into there. Fotu dealing with the heel injury, not listed on Wednesday, limited on Thursday. And Parham, Achilles situation, not listed on Wednesday, full participant on Thursday. So it sounds like he's good to go as well. Cleveland Browns, they come in relatively healthy as well. There's a couple guys to pay attention to, though, for sure. And really, it goes to their offensive line. So their guard, Joel Bitonio, he rested on Wednesday, so he was limited in practice. Malik Collins, their defensive tackle, he also had a rest day, was limited on Wednesday. Myles Garrett, their defensive end, who's got 15 sacks on the season, rest day, limited on Wednesday. Denzel Ward, their cornerback, rested, limited on Wednesday. All those guys return on Thursday, full participants. Now, when it comes to their tackles, Jack Conklin, knee injury, limited on Wednesday and Thursday, something to pay attention to. Their other tackle, Cam Robinson, knee injury, limited on Wednesday and Thursday. That is something to pay attention to. That is nothing to shake a stick at. That is something that's obviously important. If their offensive line is compromised, especially with Shedeur Sanders back there getting his first start, it's a night that Max Crosby, it's a night that Adam Butler, it's a night that maybe Malcolm Kuntz and Tyree Wilson can step up to the plate and really harass the mess out of Shedeur Sanders. So pay attention to the injury report when it comes to those tackles for the Cleveland Browns. David Njoku, that's another big one. Tight end, knee issue. Did not participate on Wednesday or Thursday. Definitely want to pay attention to that. We know Dylan Gabriel's out dealing with a concussion. He will not play. And safety Grant Delpit, elbow injury, full participant on Wednesday and Thursday. He should be good. So really the ones to pay attention to for the Browns, the tackles, Cam Robinson and Jack Conklin, and then their tight end, David Njoku. Those could be 3 big losses if they can't play, or with the tackles, I do think they'll play, but they'll definitely be compromised. Now, something that we thought was going to happen earlier in the week, and it actually did happen on Wednesday, but we didn't get a chance to talk about it on Thursday's show because we had the crossover edition, was the activation of Aiden O'Connell from the reserved IR list to the 53-man roster. So that did happen on Wednesday. He is now part of the 53-man roster, and they have waived Chris Smith, the safety. They had waived him to make room for Aiden O'Connell, and what I had said earlier in the week was that clears a spot for Aiden. What's most likely going to happen is Chris Smith will clear waivers and the Raiders will put him on the practice squad because they did waive one of their tackles off the practice squad. Well, the only problem is if another team picks up Chris Smith off of waivers, and that's exactly what happened also on Wednesday. The Rams, they claimed safety Chris Smith off waivers. The Raiders got rid of him on Tuesday. He was a 2023 fifth-round pick, was a special teamer. So only 4 of the Raiders' 9 2023 draft picks actually remain on the team. The drafting issues have definitely continued. So Aiden O'Connell, he's back. He's in the mix. We caught up with him in the Raiders locker room on Wednesday. Here's a couple minutes with what could be the backup quarterback. If something happens to Geno Smith, could be the starting quarterback.
Get activated today. Just thoughts on getting back on the field, possibly playing.
Yeah, super excited. Obviously been able to practice over the last few weeks, so that was a big milestone too, just getting out there with the guys during practice. But yeah, excited to be officially back on the squad.
How's the injury feel right now?
That feels great. Yeah, throwing's felt pretty normal for a while. Still a couple things in the training room that we're doing just to, more maintenance than anything, but it feels great.
Is it full strength at this point in terms of, how far you can throw it, how hard you can throw it, that sort of stuff?
Yeah, I got extra time in the rehab to, I think it was 6 to 8 week injury, and it's been more than that. So I've been able to definitely get it calloused, and yeah, it feels really good.
And the time that you've been kind of away, just what have you reflected on?
Yeah, I think anytime the game's kind of taken away from you, it's hard. And, I've tried my best to encourage the guys and be supportive in the quarterback room and offensive unit, entire team. Obviously, it's been hard. It's not as many wins as we were hoping for, but, it just takes 1 week. We're hoping to turn it around.
For you, while you were out, what were you kind of working on? Was it a lot of film work and book work, like playbook work? What were you working on?
Yeah, I was with the QBs basically through every meeting. Didn't travel with the team for a little bit, but all the stuff throughout the week was tried to be as present as possible so I could help those guys continue with the game plan and give my insight, but also, help those guys talk through it and really just be an ear, a lending hand to Geno, to Kenny, to the rest of the crew.
I feel like you got a good grasp on this playbook if in fact you were to be called on?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, obviously been doing it since OTAs, so that was the reason I try to stay engaged as much as possible, just in case.
What do you feel like your role can be over these next seven games?
Yeah, I think whatever they ask me to do, I'm going to do. I definitely think going to continue on what I've been doing. Again, as I've said, I try to stay involved, and so just continue to help, continue to communicate with the quarterbacks, rest of the offense, give my 2 cents where they're welcomed, and also try not to have too many cooks in the kitchen at the same time. So try to find that role.
Just a couple minutes with Aiden O'Connell there in the Raiders locker room. That was on Wednesday, the day that he got activated to the 53-man roster. And as I've been mentioning now for a couple weeks, he has been practicing in full, so he is available. I don't think that he's going to be replacing Geno Smith anytime soon, just my gut feeling. But again, you've got Myles Garrett and company coming to town. Myles Garrett's had 10 sacks in the last 3 games. We know what the Raiders offensive line looks like, and we know how Geno Smith has to run for his life. Like a couple games ago, 6 sacks he took against the Denver Broncos, took 4 on Monday against the Dallas Cowboys. So, there could be a scenario where Aiden O'Connell's number gets called. At least he's available, and you just heard what he had to say in the Raiders locker room. Coming up in segment number 2, what I'm looking for on Sunday, keys to victory. What do the Raiders have to do in a game that they should win? But there's been a lot of shoulda, woulda, coulda with the silver and black. What do they got to do? That's coming up, segment number 2. Before we get to that, though, I do want to tell you about one of the great sponsors we have here on the show, and that is PrizePicks. You and I, we make decisions every day. But on PrizePicks, being right can actually get you paid. Don't miss any of the excitement of this sports season. You could be following the NFL, the NBA, maybe both. There's no better time to jump in on the action. If you haven't tried it yet, what are you waiting for? PrizePicks is the simplest way to play. All you do is pick more or less on at least 2 player stats, and if you get them right, you win. It takes 60 seconds to do. Matter of fact, it probably takes less than 60 seconds to make your lineup, and you can play anywhere that PrizePicks operates, including Cali, Texas, and Georgia. They have a new stacks feature. It's a game changer. You can now pick more on, say, Steph Curry's points, threes, and assists in the same lineup. And you can mix and match. You can pick your favorite players, like an NFL player, say you want to go with Geno Smith or Ashton Genty or Brock Bowers, and then say Steph Curry. Again, you can mix and match. And if one of your players leaves early with the injury reboot saves your lineup from a loss. What do you need to do? Right now, download the PrizePicks apps today. Use promo code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's promo code LOCKEDONNFL for $50 in lineups after your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks, it's good to be right. All right, Nation, here we go. Segment number 2 of today's Locked On Raiders podcast. Looking at Week 12 action at Allegiant Stadium. Always look forward to the opportunity to be there. But this game coming up, you're looking at two teams that are both 2-8. Neither one of these teams are very good at this stage of the game. But the Browns have a really good defense coming to town. Matter of fact, number 2 in the league right now, only behind the Houston Texans. And you saw what Houston did on Thursday Night Football, didn't you? They sacked Josh Allen 8 times, turned him over 3 times. Matter of fact, real quick on the Texans, do you know that they have created 12 interceptions on the season, and they've only allowed 10 passing touchdowns on the season? The only team in the National Football League that can claim that right there. So, just wanted to pass that along to let it be known it can be done. So the Browns, they have a really good defense, and they have Shedeur Sanders coming in as the quarterback. But at this stage of the game, the Raiders are favored in this one. They should win this one. And as I said on the crossover edition, as I've said on my radio show, as I've said in passing, this is a game that the Raiders should not lose, right? Shedeur Sanders, as you saw him last week against the Baltimore Ravens, was not ready to come into action. I know everyone said, well, he didn't get any practice reps. He was unprepared. He wasn't ready to go. One, I think that's a little bit on him. I know that the practice reps, that means a lot. Don't get me wrong. I know that. But also just not being prepared, looking not the part, to me, that means that he wasn't doing a lot of homework. Like I heard people say, well, he just had no idea. He didn't think he was going to go in, so he wasn't really focused in on the game plan. Well, why not? As a backup quarterback, you always, just like we heard from Aiden O'Connell in segment number 1, as a backup quarterback, your number could get called at any time. So I was a little disappointed that, the reports are he wasn't really focused in on playing, didn't think that he was going to get a chance to get into the action. You should always think that there's a chance you're going to get into action. But with that being said, he's practicing all week, got the first team reps, working hand in hand with Kevin Stefanski, trying to figure out what they do. And the team is fired up to have him as the quarterback because they know they're going to try to stretch the field. So what I'm trying to say is this is a game that the Raiders in the past have found a way to lose. And as soon as Shedeur Sanders was announced as the starting quarterback, we kind of knew he was going to be since he went into the game in Week 11 against Baltimore when Dylan Gabriel went down with a concussion. I thought immediately, man, here's Baker Mayfield with the Rams all over. Here is Jeff Saturday with the Colts all over. Here is Andy Dalton with the Panthers all over. Here is Nick Mullins with the 49ers all over. Here is Ryan Fitzpatrick with the Dolphins all over, right? I mean, just situations and scenarios that the Raiders should not find themselves in. They should be able to take advantage of these teams. More times than not, they come out on the wrong end of these things. So this is one of these games. When you're talking about what I'm looking for on Sunday, I'm looking for that not to happen, not to be embarrassed, not to all of a sudden have to come back to this show on Monday and talk about how Shedeur Sanders in his first career start lit up the Raiders. Like, they cannot allow that to happen. The Raiders have to do everything in their power to confuse this dude, throw the kitchen sink at this dude, make him run for his life. He'll backpedal. He'll do a bunch of spins, and he'll just keep going back. Like, you have to make him have a bad game. And it's not that I'm rooting for him to be a failed quarterback. I just don't want him to be successful on Sunday, right? I'm also looking for the offensive line to work together. Right, if you're looking at some of the film from Monday night against the Cowboys, you could tell the communication was not there. Now, I get it. It was a makeshift offensive line. Stone Forsythe, Dylan Parham, Will Putnam, Jordan Meredith, DJ Glaze. I get it. There's not a lot of time on task with each other. I get it. But still, you're professionals. You're going into Week 12. You know what's on the line. You know who's against from you. And again, it's going to be very difficult going up against 95. This dude's got 15 sacks on the season, and 10 of them been in the last 3 games. So he's eating right now, and he's looking for that single-season sack record he wants to break. What better team to do it against than the Raiders, right? So that's going to be difficult for the offensive line. I want to see a balanced attack offensively as much as possible, right? And I understand Chip Kelly, he spoke with the media on Thursday, basically backing up the game plan that they had put in place against Dallas. I still don't agree with it. Just because he said it doesn't mean I have to agree with it. I don't. But that's fine, right? But I would like to see as much of a balanced attack as possible. I feel like if you're going to go play action, at some point you do have to try to run the ball. And they didn't. And I know the offensive line is not blocking well, but I also know, as I talk to Lincoln Kennedy all the time, he's been here in Studio Q many times, we're really good friends, right? He's not just a colleague, we're friends. And I know the one thing he'll tell you all the time, and he tells me all the time, Q, as offensive linemen, we much rather try to run block than pass pro. I know that for a fact. That is non-negotiable Any offensive lineman will tell you that. Any offensive lineman will tell you that. Much rather run block than pass pro. So I would like to see the Raiders attempt to have a much balanced attack as possible. Now, if they get behind early, which I don't think they will, don't think the Browns are going to light it up offensively, then maybe they have to get away from it. But at least give themselves a chance. That's all I'm saying. I mentioned defensively, throw the kitchen sink at Shedeur. Don't allow him to get comfortable. There's going to be a lot of Browns fans in town. I promise you. My guy Emmett Golden from ESPN Cleveland, ESPN Radio. I do game night with them on ESPN Radio. They're in town on Friday, and they're bringing a big old plane full of folks. They're staying at Mandalay Bay. They got plans all weekend long. Just letting you know. And there's going to be a lot of Colorado fans that are there that are going to be trying to throw up the rollie, and they're the support Shedeur. And as Emmett works at ESPN Cleveland, it's great. I get great intel from him. He's like, Q, you would not believe all the calls I get from Colorado. You will not believe all the texts that we get from Colorado. You will not believe all the Colorado Buffalo fans that hit us up and listen to us because they want to hear about their guy Shedeur. So trust and believe they're going to be in the building on Sunday. It's going to be a very heavy Browns crowd, Shedeur Sanders crowd. Now, I don't think it's going to be as heavy as it was Cowboy crowd, but it's going to be thick. If he gets out there, gets comfortable, throws the rollie up a couple times, and those fans get lathered up, okay, watch out. And finally, what I'm looking for from the Raiders, take advantage of the Browns' poor special teams. They have poor special teams. You heard Spencer German on the crossover edition. My guy Emmett Golden has backed that up. They're not good in special teams. They're not good in kick coverage, right? They've had multiple kicks returned against them, even against the Jets. The Jets returned multiple kicks against them. Take advantage of that. The Raiders haven't done it in many moons. They haven't taken one to the house in many moons. When you're offensively struggling and you're going up a defense that's number 2 in the league, like the Cleveland Browns, sometimes the third phase of the game needs to be the heavy lifter. The special teams may have to give the Raiders short fields. They may even have to score. Defensively, it'd be nice to see them score. I think Shedeur will turn the ball over. I think he will. He's definitely going to try to stretch the field, but he can turn the ball over for sure. He'll set it up a couple times, like Emmett told me. Q, he's going to stretch the field. He's going to try to get some explosive plays down the field. It's either going to result in a touchdown, an incompletion, or an interception. And so it's going to be there, but that's when guys like Jeremy Chin, that's when guys like Isaiah Polamau, it's guys when Eric Stokes, right, Caillou Blue Kelly, Darian Porter, these type of guys, even the linebackers, right, they can step up and make plays. Make a play when the play is there to be made. I think they can, but they have to do it, right? We all know that they have the skill set, but more times than not, they don't pull it off. So that's what I'm looking for on Sunday from the Silver and Black. If we walk away from Allegiant Stadium on Sunday and the Raiders lose, let it be because the defense of the Browns made a couple more plays than the Raiders did. Let it be because Myles Garrett wrecked the game, not because Shedeur Sanders all of a sudden balled out in his first game as a starter in the NFL. When, oh, by the way, Cleveland Browns starters, their first time getting a start for the Browns, 0-17. Don't let the Raiders be the one time that they get a dub when they're 0-17. By the way, the Browns have had 42 starting quarterbacks since they returned to the NFL in 99. 42. The Bears are second with 30. So the Raiders haven't been that bad. 42 is a lot of quarterbacks. Don't let this one be successful, at least not on Sunday. What's on your mind? Your calls and texts will close out the show. 707-654-4693. We'll hear from you next. Before we get to that, though, I do want to tell you about the title sponsor of the show, and that's Gametime. The NFL season, man, it's in the home stretch now, right? There's nothing better than being in the stadium surrounded by fans cheering on your team. But let's be honest about it. Getting tickets could be a hassle. Between queues, login screens, and price jumping at checkout, it becomes frustrating. Unless you're my guy Vegas Jess, when tickets just appear in his pocket. That's how it happens. That's why most people got to use Gametime. That's the app that gives the advantage back to the fans. Gametime is fast, easy, and backed by the Gametime guarantee. You'll always get 100% authentic tickets delivered on time and at the best price. Plus, all fees are included, so the price you see is actually the price that you'll pay. The app is super simple. You can see the exact view from your seat before you buy. They've got the zone deals where you pick up the section. Gametime will pick the seats, and you save big. It's faster, cheaper, and less stressful than any other way you'll buy tickets. Right now, download the Gametime app, create an account, use the promo code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms do apply. Again, promo code LOCKEDONNFL. That's LOCKEDON NFL for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. Download Gametime today. Here we go, Raider Nation. Segment number 3 of today's Locked On Raiders podcast. Your calls and text straight off that Locked On Raider podcast voicemail line, 707-654-4693. Let's start things off with a call from CK from Arizona, calling to talk about the patience of Raider Nation, the Tom Brady effect, and ask a question about a quarterback on the team that nobody's really talking about. Here he is, CK from Arizona.
Hey, what's going on, Q? This is CK calling out of Arizona. Look, I just wanted to hit up and say, Raider Nation, that I feel like I know we're all impatient. Trust me, we're all impatient. But I feel like with Tom Brady being minority owner, and from what it seems like, what we hear, what we read, him having more control than what one might perceive initially, we have to think about how many times that man has gone on record and saying that he doesn't like when we force feed rookies into the limelight and into the starting position. So I'm just curious. I've asked this before and I'm asking again, Q. The acquisition of Cam Miller with a 6th-round pick, is that a diamond in the rough? Like, is that something that Brady saw that he could develop and they tried to hush it? Because we saw a flash from that young man in the first 2 preseason games. Or do you believe that Cam Miller might be a developmental piece that they're cashing because they're waiting to get pieces in, like they're gonna actually focus on bolstering the trenches and then get that guy out of there? And as far as Pete Carroll goes, I we saw that hire as long term. I don't think any of us did. So I think that hiring him kind of should have been the writing on the wall for a lot of us that it was the rebuild, because how was he seriously over or inherit what he inherited as far as roster and get us some W's.
CK, thanks so much for the call. Appreciate you. Appreciate your patience. And I realized the call got cut a little short. It actually cut out a little bit, so I wanted to make sure that we were able to hear what you said. But Cam Miller, he could be a diamond in the rough, right? I'm not 100% sold on that, but he could end up being a diamond in the rough. There's reports out there that Brady picked him. I can't confirm that. I can't deny it either. I don't know. They're just reports that are out there. I don't think he'll be ready at all this year. If anything, he'll have to go into the offseason, go through the offseason program and get some burn there. I mean, think about it. Backups barely get any burn in the regular season, let alone a guy on the practice squad. So he might be getting a scout team work at best, as far as I'm concerned. As far as the Pete Carroll hire, that told me that they were trying to win now and build for the future at the same time. And I've said it on this show. You can go back and look. I said that's very difficult to do. Pete Carroll said it from the day he got there. I want to win right now. I'm not worried about 2-3 years ramp-up period. I want to win right now. We're going to win a bunch of games. That's all I know. And so I knew then that they were going to try to win and build for the future. Again, it can be done. It's very difficult. Thanks so much for the call. Definitely appreciate you. And again, thanks for your patience for sure. Up next, got a text from Paul in Cali. Pretty lengthy one. He says, "Hey, Q. Name is Paul. Just want to say I want to start off and blame Gino and the Raiders for my blood pressure. A friend says he wants to blame Gino for his divorce. Since this is a therapy session, every segment 3, everyone expressing what's bothering them. I just want to say the Raiders need to address the line big time. Since the car insurance went, the line has been trash. Everyone blaming Gino since he's part of the reason why the Raiders are losing. But I feel the O-line is a big problem. At the end of the season, Brandon will be fired, or maybe they'll say fire Chip as well for his play calling. But we know how the NFL works. They're going to make a business decision, and they'll let Pete go, and Chip would take charge of the team if they decide to keep him so he can make it his team since he just won a championship. I'm just putting things out there, but who knows? I just want to see the Raiders win again. Whereas the commitment to excellence been, these new coaches, only positive for me is I bought VIP club tickets to the Jag versus Raiders since no one's going to the games. At least I got to experience that. Thank you and Hari for the job you guys do. Raiders, that's Paul in Cali. Thanks so much for the text. I appreciate you. And it's funny, ever since Gino has said, blame me. If your kids do bad in school, blame me. If your car breaks down on the way to work, blame me. Everyone has been doing that now. My guy, Vinny Bonsignore, he was on the radio the other morning on Raider Nation Radio 920, and he was saying, hey, man, didn't take the trash out. My wife asked, why didn't I take the trash out? I said, it's Geno Smith's fault. Right? Didn't make the bed. You know why? Geno Smith. Got in a car accident. It's Geno Smith's fault, right? So that's been kind of like the little thing going around, and folks have been saying that just because Geno made that, he opened up that can of worms. But it was just funny when I heard it on the radio. Hey, man, didn't take the trash out on trash night. It's Geno Smith's fault. So we'll see what happens. There's obviously going to be some changes made in the offseason. I feel very strong about that, but I'd be lying to you if I told you where it's coming from. I really have no idea. I don't feel like that this staff, the way this put together right now, is going to last another year. I don't see it that way. But I don't know. I'd be lying to you, and I'm not going to do that if I acted like I knew where it was coming from. But thanks so much for the text. Definitely appreciate you. Got a call from Seneca in San Diego calling to share his thoughts of the power struggle within the Raiders organization. Seneca in San Diego.
Q, this is Seneca from San Diego. I wanted to respond to your points, which were tremendously accurate, regarding the power struggle within the Raider organization. I had issues with hiring a Super Bowl winning coach, Pete Carroll, and pairing him with a rookie general manager, John Spytek. That power, the power between them is unequal. It will skew to Pete Carroll. John Spytek, it wants to give Carroll what he wants. He's not going to push back likely. And we're seeing that play out on the field as Carroll plays the veterans, hiring, or I should say signing Amari Cooper and then signing Lockett. It's all playing out. And this is going to be a problem even if Carroll is retained next year and Kelly is fired, for example. In any organization, the CEO, the top person, must make roles and responsibilities and power clear. Otherwise, it gets fuzzy. You really don't know who's doing what, who has the power. And power that is unequal in an organization, if one person has it, then it needs to be apparent. You need to say, okay, Pete Carroll, you have full control over personnel and in coaching. Or John Spytek, on the other hand, then make him the full arbitrator. And then Tom Brady, he's doing his announcing gig. He's half in, he's half out. Either get in fully and be the president of football operations. Again, not sure what he does. So this all leads back to Mark Davis. And when him saying this in the press conference, I think it was, well, it'll be a partnership. No, you need to make it clear, Mark Davis, who has the power, who does. And we're all wondering that. And that dysfunction is playing out on the field. And until someone really arbitrates, and I don't think it will happen for Mark Davis, this will continue. And I think continue to hammer this point, Q. Continue to talk about this. Ask questions to Spytek or to Pete Carroll when the timing is appropriate. Who has the power? Who's making the personnel decisions? They'll probably lean back into it's a partnership, and that's a non-answer. So I appreciate those points that you made the other day. Take care.
Thanks so much for the call. Definitely appreciate that and appreciate you, and some really good points made, right? And, I do want to know, what the feeling was headed into the season and what the feeling is now as far as a relationship between upstairs and downstairs, right? It feels like it's different. When John Spytek and Pete Carroll were introduced, it seemed like that they were on the same page. Pete Carroll, the older veteran head coach and the GM that's getting his first opportunity. So Pete Carroll can kind of help him be comfortable in the decisions that are made. But now it really feels like Pete Carroll is set in a certain way and wants to do things his way. And John Spytek's like, hey, man, we're going into week 12. Season's almost over. The team is 2-8. We got to get some business taken care of. And it feels like there's a pushback from Pete Carroll, including not wanting to move on from Jacoby Myers, which we all know I wasn't a fan of that either. But at some point, John Spytek had to make the decision. We're going to move on from Jacoby. We're going to trade him so we get something back in return, where if he walks in free agency, we won't. So, Seneca, thanks so much for the call. Definitely appreciate you. Just got time for a couple more. We'll take this text from Raider Mark in the 530. It's a pretty lengthy one as well. Well, Q, Raider Mark from the 530, I hope this gets to you before the weekend game against the Browns. Meeting you is going to be the best part of going because of what we've seen this team become. The Las Vegas Expeditions. The only player you can call Raiders on this team is, of course, Max Crosby, face of the defense, and Brock Bowers, the face of the offense. Other than that, just expedition players looking for their next contracts with other teams and one-year contracts for older players heading into retirement. The hope we get from our rookie class will ever play until they can go to other teams. The hope we get from our rookie class will play until they can go to other teams also, because this team will only be good enough ever to make the show look good on the field in Vegas. We're the visiting team. We're visiting teams get to go home winners, and Las Vegas gets the money. We can't be mad at Mark Davis for making his business better. But saying this right now, the expectations will win because it'll hurt their draft position, and this team is cursed to always have the worst outcome, even if they win. This team is who it is. There's no head coach coming to save the team. No quarterback is going to make this team great. It's just another show on the Strip in Las Vegas. It's going to be that way for a long, long time. No winning season for this team. Remember, this one, you talk about this head coaching carousel. This Raiders team would still have the same head coach if some emails wouldn't have been leaked. So always remember to mention that, Q. The NFL pulled the plug on Mark Davis. Best decision for the team. So now he's just concentrating on the business. Till I see you, this is the weekend. The house always wins and just business, baby. Raider Mark 530. I'm out. Curse, coincidence, or conspiracies. Woo! That was a lot. That was a lot, brother. Thank you very much for that. I don't even know where to start, so I'm just going to say that was a lot. And I'll just leave it at that. Look, I can't defend what Coach Gruden's email said. I don't agree with the way that they were all leaked, as you mentioned. But I can't also defend what was said in them, right? I mean, obviously what he said was wrong. The fact that, nobody else's emails were leaked is something else, but I'm not in the position to say, well, yeah, he wasn't right, but look at him. And how come they, you know what I mean? Like, I'm just not in that position. So regardless of why it happened, how it happened, I don't know everything about it. You know that. None of us do. But clearly it was something over here to deflect so nobody would look over there, if you know what I mean. But that's really all I got on that. But thanks so much for the text. I do appreciate you. And we'll go ahead and close out with one short text from Jay Raider in the 954. Got a call from Vader Raider we'll get to coming up on Monday. Said, okay, Q, the wife and I are getting ready to fly out Saturday morning, going to our first Raider game in Las Vegas, our first trip to Las Vegas in general. Want your thought on which jersey? 77 Alzado, 34 Jackson, 24 Woodson, or 98 Crosby? Looking forward to meeting you pregame. Raiders till I die. Jay Raider in the 954. Oh, that's easy for me. 2-4. It's always going to be 2-4. If I could pan, and I can't, if I can move the camera around Studio Q right now, I got two 24 jerseys autographed, one by Marshawn Lynch, one by Charles Woodson. 24 is my favorite number, going back to my favorite baseball player of all time, Ricky Henderson. So, yeah, 24 is the number, man. That's the one to wear right there. I always say DBs win games, so that's an easy one for me. I know that there's a Woodson Whiskey special going on at Allegiant Stadium on Sunday, so maybe you can tie it all together. I don't know. That's just me. That's what I'd rock with, 24. Speaking of meeting me, though, I will be at Allegiant Stadium. I will be at the Torch bright and early. I've got Q's kickoff, the pregame show before JT the Brick and the Hall of Famer Eric Allen take over. So that'll be, 10 to 11 o'clock. They'll take over at 11, take you right up to kickoff with Kirk Morrison and Jason Horowitz on the call. But I'll be there at the Torch at Allegiant Stadium. I'll be there up until about 10 minutes before kickoff. Then I'll make my way to the press box. So if you are coming to the game, if you are in and around town and you get there, please come up and say what's up. I'd like to at least shake your hand and say thank you for listening to the show and telling others about it. So I definitely appreciate that. And if you aren't telling others about it, go ahead and do that. You know what I mean? But no, really, I do thank you so much. And I appreciate that. Would love to shake your hand and say you thank you in person. So until Monday, we'll be back. Obviously, hopefully the Raiders are winners and we're giving out game balls and talking about how they did not let Shedeur Sanders embarrass them. But, of course, they got to play the game on the field. But we'll be here on Monday to talk about it. So have a great weekend. Enjoy the game. We'll be back on Monday. Until then, Raider Nation, take care of yourself. Take care of your family. Love on your family. Most importantly, as always, just win, baby.